My name is Jean-Emile Elien, also pronounced Jean-Emile for those who speak more French. He, him, and I'm a partner software architect in Xbox. So the role of the architect varies by team, but it is mostly now about sort of technical coordination amongst your feature work. Figuring out big technical problems that multiple teams actually are engaging in together, sort of finding the blind spots in terms of, okay, well, we're about to build this thing. Do we have everything we need? Do we have everybody online to actually go work it? Particularly for me, actually, being sort of a more senior engineer, is I'm starting to look at at the distant horizon. What are the next big technical investments that we need to go do to bring to the team to start fleshing out and building for the next set of experiences for our customers? So I've always been interested in high performance computing, is probably the best way to describe it. The kind of work that I did pretty quickly led myself to being much more of a technical coordinator. I wasn't necessarily the fastest developer in the room, but I read a lot of code and I would help find gaps pretty quickly in terms of how my peers were actually working, as well as sort of diagnosing and troubleshooting really sort of intricate problems. And my ability to sort of tinker and work on these technical problems and actually doing so, and actually doing it at a larger and larger scale, is what has kept me interested and kept me sort of in this role of not quite doing software development every day, but not quite being a manager. The most surprising aspect of this was how many blind spots there actually were in terms of how we built games and systems around them. The tendency of actually when you build a team and you start working on a particular problem is everyone gets very focused on their particular part of the problem. And there becomes a lot of assumptions in terms of how your part is going to interface with everybody else, because you mentally assume that everyone thinks the way you do. We're all human, we're all very different. And it's as much about figuring out technology as it is about figuring out people. The Kinect launch for 360, a device in your living room that doesn't require you to use a controller to play, or a mouse or a keyboard, that you can have meaningful experiences with, that actually works reliably. The number of technical challenges and the systems that we had to build just to prove the idea even worked, much less actually getting it into market, was incredibly challenging and super rewarding. And it's rewarding even if it wasn't considered an industry changing success, because the people who I found actually starting to get into the idea of thinking they could play a game, or if that was even a thing that they could do, changed drastically. I have nieces who will occasionally still bring out their 360 and play the Kinect games, because that still brings them joy, and they find that as a mechanism that they are interacting and can play to one another. I think that for me is still the most rewarding collective endeavor I think I did as part of Xbox. The industry changes drastically, and there's always a new avenue, a new idea, a new direction being pushed on in terms of how we want to play and who we want to play with. Traditionally, right, you think of Xbox, you think of that box in your living room that actually can put games in front of your screen to be able to that you can play games. Increasingly, we're going from needing for you to have a box in the room, right, to being able to play on a screen that you happen to have anywhere with you with xCloud. Like, so a bunch of technology that says, okay, well, how do we take that experience and bring you something that is high fidelity? And part of that for me is our ability to actually start going into markets that are non-US, right, to be able to reach more people who look like me and have stories that actually they need to be told. So making it more ubiquitous for people actually to reach more people around the world is super exciting on the horizon, and requires rethinking a lot of how we build and ship the games that people enjoy.